Okay, so today it's Tuesday, October 15th, and I'm here again. This is Gina with Dad and Kim, and we're going to talk a little bit today about Dad's family tree, because Kim is done a lot of research, so she can fill us in on all of that. So, well, she can ask Dad, and if he doesn't know, she'll fill us in. So Kim, it's going to start with, so who came over and when to Australia?
So the first family members were Mary Ann Finnegan and Hugh O'Neill, and they met on the Hybrid in 1848.
What was the Hybrid?
That was the ship that they came over on, and they were Irish. Both of them were Irish. They married, they had the children, and one of those children was Maud Appleton. Maud O'Neill, who married John Appleton.
So she became Maud Appleton.
Yeah, and they grew up in Botany, along Botany Road. And what else, Dad?
So who were they related to Dad?
That's our. So
that's Dad's.
Hugh O'Neill and Mary Ann Finnegan are Dad's great grandparents.
Oh my gosh, that's going way back. Okay. And then there was something about two people coming over on the boat from England, Dad. What's that story? And they both there was two kids?
Yes.
Okay, what year was that?
Okay, so that was the Smiths. We're still looking into it because the family story said that the mother died on the ship coming out, but from what I can gather, she didn't. She died shortly after arriving in Queensland, and by then she remarried another fellow, and she was married to another fellow in Queensland for a year. There were three children. There was Ely, Maud, Dagmar Maud, and
Stan.
and Francis Joseph Vincent Smith, who is Dad's grandfather, who was Ma's father. He died when Ma was a little girl, about one.
He was a first enrolment at St Joseph's College.
That's right, he was too. Yeah. So there's some there's some reports about him doing well at school, but he only lasted at Joey's for a year, and then he went to Queensland. In the exiting book, it said that father is still unwell. Now, the father, they think, was in Sydney. The mother had died and she was in Queensland. Francis went back up to Queensland, where I think his two sisters were, and then they came down to Sydney.
And they were English?
They were English.
And so his grandparents, they were, who married? His grandparents.
Do you want me to say who they were?
No, Dad, you say it.
No,
okay.
Kim's got a bit of me.
So the two grandparents were Francis Joseph Vincent Smith.
Yeah.
And that was the one that went to Joey's.
That was the fellow that went to Joey's, and was her name Elizabeth Maud, but she went by Maud Appleton, and she was the granddaughter of the O'Neills.
And so
the daughter of the
Ma was born into those two, and what was her last name?
Smith. Her last name was Smith.
And where did they live?
Ma lived. Where did Ma grow up, Dad?
Balmain, didn't they?
Yeah.
Balmain, yeah. All in Balmain. They were all in.
Okay, and so Ma.
You've seen the house and.
Yeah, and there was how many kids?
Well, from the Smith family.
No, just Ma's siblings.
Yes. So when Ma was born, her father died.
Oh.
And that's when Elizabeth married the Finlayson fellow. So Ma's direct brothers were Arthur Stanley Smith.
Oh, Dad's namesake.
Yep, and then Francis Smith, and they all called him Frank.
Frank Smith. Yeah.
And then
they actually started out in Botany, but then they moved down to Balmain.
And then after that, she married and became
Finlayson.
Finlayson, and how many?
And they all grew up and then there were four. How many Finlayson children?
Two
Okay.
boys
So-
and 3 girls.
Yeah, so the Finlayson boys were called
William, Neville, Francis,
William, Neville, and then the girls were
Valerie, Belle, and Helen.
and Mark, and yeah,
Okay, and so they lived in Balmain, and what was the family business?
Balmain Engineering.
And what did they do? What is it?
Engineers,
They were
general
engineers.
engineers.
And what did they build?
They would do repairs on ships.
Down at Balmain. And so there's a couple of significant things that they built. What was it called? Balmain Engineering?
Yeah.
And so one of those was on the Harbour Bridge?
Yes, they they installed all the electrics, things that hang, light fittings. Kendall Foundries did the actual castings and they installed them. on
And
the
so
bridge.
are they still there, those?
Yes, they were still on the bridge.
And has
last
it got
I
a
was-
name on there?
No. They just hang. They used to hang.
You
they
just
hang,
know.
Yeah, just there. They're
And
on
they-
the bridge. You can see them.
And you, so then we have all that family living in Balmain.
in Newton Place.
Well, then they moved to They moved to Point Piper and then to Rose Bay.
Okay, but what happened to that business? You said in the Depression?
In the Depression, they sat to sell it.
The business.
Which is now what do they call it? The tech school. What is it down there?
Oh, and then they moved, so they had to sell Balmain, but
And
then
moved
there's
into Jones Street, Ultimo.
Jones Street, Ultimo, and which is now the UTI
Yeah.
University in
Yeah.
downtown
Yeah.
Sydney. So, well, that's good. And so you were born. So we talked a little bit about this, but so your mother and father. I think we spoke about this. But Kim, tell us a little bit more about a little history of the.
So in the area of Balmain, it was mainly shipwrights and engineering people because it was right on right close to the harbour, Sydney Harbour. So on one side of the street, if you're driving down the main road, Darling Street, the right-hand side were where Ma's family grew up, and on the left-hand side was where Dad's father's family grew up. Dad's families weren't as wealthy as Ma's family, and they were non-Catholic. They were Church of England, and Ma's family were Catholic.
And so.
But they all would have known one another because it was where their places are positioned. You wouldn't have not known one another.
Okay. And Dad's family, Dad's father's name was Dumbrell. So
That's
that's
right.
where we all got our
Yeah.
name. So wasn't there some controversy though between the apple? So now Dad meets Mum, and the families didn't
So
like
the
each other.
Finlaysons, between the Finlaysons and the Furlong girls, because Auntie Belle was engaged to Morris Wallington.
Okay, wait a sec. So Auntie Belle was
Ma's
our grandmother's sister.
Stepsister.
Okay. And she was engaged to a guy called Morris Wallington. And why was that a problem?
Well, it wasn't in the beginning, but then there was another suitor on the same page
George Roberts.
called
What
George.
was his name?
George Roberts.
Okay, and tell
And
me
he
about
was a
George
secretary.
Roberts.
He was a private secretary to the Earl Beecham.
Okay, and so Auntie Belle was dating two people at the same time, is that right?
And she had announced her engagement to Morris.
And then she flicked over to George.
And married George quickly.
And okay, so
All they did was change the names of
On the-
on the table, sort of thing, at the wedding.
it was that quick.
Yeah, it was that quick. It all happened so quickly.
Now, what happened at the wedding?
What happened at the wedding?
Well, the story goes that the Furlong girls
No, the Furlong girls are Mum's.
family, but
Family's side.
this was after. So Bill gets married.
Nay Buddha at the church.
No, not with George Roberts.
No, not with George.
No. So
Okay.
Bill marries George, goes off overseas.
Okay.
The marriage ends, and she comes back.
Oh, it ended.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's newspaper clippings and stuff like that about
You
what
can
happened.
read all about it.
And the reason that the marriage ended was that there was a rumour that this guy that
Yeah.
she married was really not
He wasn't a very
proper
nice
husband.
No, and he wasn't a very nice fellow, and he locked her in cupboards and stuff like that.
What?
So
Well, that's
that's the newspaper clippings and whether it
That's
really
a mirror.
happened.
And Auntie Belle, just to say, was very flamboyant. In
She was
her-
very beautiful in her youth. She was
Ah,
beautiful.
Very beautiful. So she comes back to Sydney, and
And starts up her liaison with Morris
again.
again.
Oh, okay. So what's the problem with that?
And well, the problem was that people.
Who she'd married in the Catholic Church.
She hadn't married Morris at that point in
No,
time.
but they had to divorce.
Yes.
And of course, you don't divorce in the Catholic Church. You-
Yes.
Oh, so she was divorced.
So then she
Catholic.
married Morris in the Greek Orthodox Church.
And the Furlong girls, the story goes, the Furlong girls were out there and they booed Auntie Belle when they came out.
Why though? Just
Because they thought that she had done the wrong thing.
The
by-
wedding at St Mary's was packed with onlookers.
St Mary's. I thought you said it was at the Greek Orthodox.
No,
No, this is George Roberts' wedding, the first wedding. It was
Oh.
packed with onlookers, and not everybody, people didn't realise that it wasn't with Morris. So the Furlong girls they felt that Morris had been taken for a bit of a ride by Belle.
Oh God, they cared that much.
Yeah. Well,
And
they
then-
were all in pubs, so the Furlongs were in pubs, and
Oh.
they knew the Wallingtons who were in pubs too, and I think they were just protecting it. Back in the day, they thought that she wasn't the right
Oh,
person.
And so
pers-
when Dad comes along to date Mum, they're like that.
Well,
old...
no, there was the other thing was that Dad's mum and Dad were divorced, so he'd come from a broken marriage.
Oh.
His father wasn't Catholic.
You had a couple of strikes
His,
against you.
his mother had remarried a non-Catholic, so they were kind of being so strong in their faith. They didn't think that Dad was the right
I
person.
see. Okay. And we did go into another video. We did go into the whole thing about Dad and Mum, and they're getting married. So,
Yeah.
but that's interesting. That whole history of your family. So they were in hotels as well as.
No, the Finlaysons were never in hotels,
Oh.
but the Wallingtons were. So Auntie Belle's husband was.
Oh, okay.
And
So-
by the way,
Dad's family were basically, his side of the family, they were tanners in Botany. So they
Dad's
had,
side?
yeah. So the Appletons, who was his grandfather, he was a master tanner, and his dad's grandfather, so Dad's great-grandfather, John Appleton, was a master tanner. He had a tannery in Botany, and then his father, his grandfather Francis Smith, was, or when he came down to Sydney, he also was a tanner.
I thought
Remember-
they were in. You said they had this engineering company.
No, that was
That
the
was-
Finlaysons
that was the Finlays.
Oh, geez. Okay. And then Mum's. You said Mum's family were
in
way
hotels.
back. But before they were always in hotels.
yes,
Oh, they're always in hotels.
Yeah,
they had the Grosvenor Hotel
yeah.
at Waterloo.
Right.
No, that's the Furlongs had the Grosvenor.
Other
Hotel.
Furlongs.
Yeah, no, the Girons had hotels too, but they were a little bit more diversified in their businesses.
Yeah.
Well, you got O'Riordan Street, out at Mascot, and that's named after the Gearin O'Riordan Tannery.
Ah.
So they were, there was some hoteliers in the Guerin family. There were tanners, there were boilermakers, there was doctors.
The Gearin family
Yeah.
was Mum's side, but
Yeah.
Dad's
Oh,
side.
Dad's side. So yeah, on Dad's side of the family, they were mainly master tanners. Going back, his first family, yeah, mainly.
Didn't someone have
tanners.
an abattoir? Wasn't there abattoirs?
No, Tannery.
Tanneries,
Okay.
which is they said what they did in the tannery was the hides, so they made
Yes.
the belts. So,
Ah.
and Dad's grandfather, Francis Smith, before he married his grandmother, he lived up in Queensland, and he had married and left a daughter up in Queensland.
Ah.
So there's relatives up in Queensland that
Which we
Dad's
don't.
never known about.
Yeah.
Ah, wow,
So-
that's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah, okay, well, that kind of
makes
covers
sense.
it.
Hope it makes sense. I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it covers it.
That's it.
Yeah, okay, well, thank you very much.
That's all right.
Okay.